March 15th, 2019. I want you to mentally circle that date in red ink because for the man at the center of our story, that day is, it's the event horizon.
Yeah. Before that date, reality operated one way.
After it, the rules of biology, memory, and language just, well, they broke.
And we aren't talking about a subtle shift here. We're talking about a man going to sleep in Palm Springs, California, a 61-year-old American Navy veteran, and waking up as, well, essentially someone else entirely.
Someone else, someone who couldn't speak a word of English, someone who didn't recognize his own face in the mirror.
And the most baffling part of all.
This is why we're doing a deep dive on this. Someone who was suddenly fluent in a language he had never, ever studied.
Fluency doesn't even quite cover it. He wasn't just speaking Swedish. He was speaking a dialect that, hasn't existed in common usage for over 100 years.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are trying to solve, or at least wrap our heads around, the impossible case of Michael Boatwright. Or, as he insisted until his dying day, Johan Ek.
We have medical reports from Desert Regional Medical Center, linguistic breakdowns from Swedish academics, and the investigative records, which are just fascinating.
It feels like we're hunting for a ghost in 19th century archives.
This case is a heavy one. It really sits at this uncomfortable intersection of neurology, linguistics, and history. We're going to explore human identity, the physical limits of the brain, and what happens when medical science just runs out of answers.
Right.
Because usually when someone wakes up with amnesia and a new personality, we can point to something. A lesion, a stroke, a tumor.
There's a smoking gun in the MRI scan.
Exactly. But in the case of Michael Boatwright, the science comes up completely empty. The smoking gun is missing, but the bullet hole is right there in the middle of the room.
I love a good mystery, but I have to admit, reading through these source materials, it feels less like a medical case study and more like the first 10 minutes of a body swap horror movie.
It really does.
So let's ground this before we get into the really weird stuff. Who are we dealing with? I mean, who is the man who went to sleep on March 14th?
That is the crucial question, isn't it? To see the anomaly, you have to establish the baseline. Michael Boatwright was 61 years old. He lived in Palm Springs.
And his background was, aggressively American.
Oh, yeah. He served in the Navy during the Gulf War. He'd been a tennis pro for a while, then moved into sales consulting. Just a normal guy.
And looking at the interviews with his family, his ex-wife Michelle, his sister Karen, they paint a picture of a guy who is just normal. He wasn't some closet intellectual or a secret linguist.
Far from it. His ex-wife Michelle was very, very clear on this. Michael had absolutely zero interest in Swedish culture.
None.
None. No Swedish ancestry. He'd never visited Scandinavia. He wasn't watching Ingmar Bergman films in his spare time. He was watching baseball. He liked classic rock.
So we can completely rule out the idea that he was secretly obsessed with Sweden.
Oh, 100%. There's no paper trail, no digital footprint, nothing to suggest he ever learned a single word of the language.
And the timeline leading up to the event is just as mundane. March 14th, the night before it all changes, he has dinner with a colleague. Chicken parmesan.
The definition of a standard evening. They talked about work. They talked about March Madness basketball brackets.
He even called his sister Karen for her birthday.
Yep. They spoke for about 20 minutes. She said he was happy. He was making plans for the summer. There was no distress, no confusion, no sign of any kind of psychological break.
He just hangs up the phone, goes to sleep around 11 p.m.
And that is effectively the moment Michael Boatwright ceased to exist.
Okay, so cut to the next morning, March 15th. Michael isn't found in his bed. He's found unconscious in a Motel 6, 4 miles away from his apartment.
And he had no memory of checking in, no memory of how he got there. He's rushed to the Desert Regional Medical Center. He wakes up. The nurses ask him his name standard protocol to check for concussion.
And he opens his mouth.
But English doesn't come out.
I can't even imagine the confusion in that room. You have an American veteran in a hospital in California, and he's speaking, what? Gibberish.
That's what they thought at first. But it had a structure, a rhythm. Eventually, they bring in a translator, a Dr. Anders Lindquist, a linguistics professor.
And Dr. Lindquist realizes pretty quickly this isn't just a guy who picked up a Rosetta Stone course.
Not even close.
Yeah.
This is where the story gets really compelling.
Yeah, this is where it hooks me, because if I decided to fake speaking Swedish, I'd probably learn, hello, my name is, maybe how to order a meatball. But Dr. Lindquist found something much stranger, didn't he?
He did. This is the detail that keeps linguists up at night. Lindquist noted that Michael wasn't speaking modern, standard Swedish, the kind you'd hear in Stockholm today.
Okay.
He was speaking a hybrid dialect. It was a mix of Old Norse and medieval Swedish.
When you say medieval, what does that actually mean in terms of speaking? Is it just using old-timey words?
It's deeper than vocabulary. It's the architecture of the language itself. In modern Swedish, the grammar has been simplified over the centuries, much like English. But Michael was using these complex verb conjugations and case endings that dropped out of common usage around the 16th or 17th century.
So he literally sounded like he walked out of a history book.
To a modern Swede, he would sound like a Shakespearean actor, insisting on using thee and thouer and these complex poetic structures, but doing it just, casually in conversation.
Yeah.
And that's the kicker. It flowed. He wasn't halting. He wasn't translating in his head. It was intuitive. It was his native tone.
And then comes the mirror test. Reading the report on this gave me a legitimate chill.
It's a devastating moment. The staff brings him a mirror so he can see himself. And he just panics. He recoils from it.
What did he say?
He says in this archaic Swedish, "That's not my face. I'm younger than this." He was terrified. He kept insisting his name was Johan Ek.
Imagine looking in a mirror and seeing a stranger staring back at you. That's just a primal fear.
Absolutely.
So naturally, the doctor's going to overdrive. If I'm the doctor, my first thought is stroke, right? Or a brain tumor pressing on the language center of the brain.
Of course, they ran the entire gauntlet. MRI, CT scans, EEG toxicology. They were looking for a bleed, a lesion, a tumor, anything that would explain why the English language files were just deleted and replaced with Swedish ones.
Yeah.
Nothing. Physically, he was perfectly healthy, no stroke, no tumor, no drugs in his system. The brain scans showed zero structural damage.
Okay, but hang on. If the hardware, the brain itself is fine, how is this even possible? Strokes can make you lose language, sure, that's called aphasia.
Right.
But can a medical event give you a language?
That is the million-dollar question. In neurology, we see people lose skills all the time. But positive symptoms, gaining a complex skill like a new language, is virtually unheard of. This is called xenoglossy.
Right.
And there are very few, if any, verified cases in medical literature that can't be explained away by prior learning.
You can't just hit your head and wake up knowing how to play the piano or speak Swahili.
Exactly.
You can't.
So the psychiatrists step in. They diagnosed him with dissociative fugue. Can you break down that term for us? A dissociative fugue is a rare psychiatric disorder. It involves reversible amnesia for your personal identity, and it's usually triggered by severe stress or trauma. It often involves fugue, which means flight, so people wander away from home.
Okay, so that explains the Motel 6. He had a breakdown, forgot he was Michael, and wandered off. That part fits.
If it's the memory loss, if it's the travel.
Yeah.
But here is the massive hole in that diagnosis.
Sure.
Fugue states do not grant new knowledge.
Right.
If I go into a fugue state, I might forget my name,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't suddenly know how to perform open heart surgery. A fugue state cannot explain native-level fluency in a dialect from the 1800s.
And it wasn't just that he knew the words. The linguistic analysis mentions ghost words. This is the part that convinced me this wasn't just memorization.
Oh, this is fascinating. Michael or Johan used words that do not appear in any dictionary, but they followed perfect Swedish linguistic rules. You see, Germanic languages like Swedish love compound words. You smash two concepts together to make a new one.
Like Schadenfreude in German.
Exactly. But if you don't know the language intimately, you'll smash the wrong words together. It'll sound clunky, unnatural.
Michael was improvising. He used the word skimtrust.
Skimtrust? It sounds beautiful. What does it mean?
He defined it as the comfort found in twilight. Another one was tidsgel,
Tidsgel.
which translates roughly to the soul of a moment in time.
The soul of a moment in time. That's profound.
It is. And linguistically, it implies a deep architectural understanding of the language. He wasn't just repeating phrases he'd heard, he was constructing new concepts using the foundational logic of 19th century Swedish. That suggests a level of fluency that goes way beyond, I studied this in college. It suggests it was innate.
So we have a guy who thinks he's Johan Ek. He claims he's from Karlstad, Sweden, but he doesn't think it's 2019.
No, he thinks it's the year 1887.
So the investigators, they decided to test this, right? They quizzed him.
They did. They had to. So they asked him about the geography of Karlstad in the 1880s.
And he knew it. He knew it better than he should have. He described a church that burned down in 1897. He knew about a tannery that closed in 1892. He mentioned a specific bridge over the Klarälven River that hasn't existed for decades.
These aren't things you find on a quick Wikipedia search.
Not at all. These are local historical details.
This brings us to the archival discovery, because they actually went looking for a real Johan Ek in the records, didn't they?
They did, and they found him. Genealogists located a Johan Ek, born in 1853 in Karlstad. He was a carpenter.
And that was the exact same profession Michael claimed to be.
The very same.
Okay, stop. That is wild.
It gets stranger. The real Johan Ek disappears from the historical record in 1887.
The exact year Michael claimed to be from.
The exact year. Johan Ek just vanishes. No death certificate, no emigration records, nothing. And there was a grainy photograph found of the real Johan Ek. The facial structure, the build. It bore a really striking resemblance to Michael Boatwright.
All right, I have to play the skeptic here. We're dancing around the idea that a 19th century carpenter somehow possessed a 21st century Navy vet. But isn't the simpler explanation that this was all just an elaborate hoax?
You have to consider it. It's the Occam's razor approach.
Right. Maybe Michael was bored or wanted to disappear, and he'd been studying this for years.
But if it was a hoax, it was the most committed performance in human history. First, think about the motive. He never asked for money. He didn't write a book. He didn't go on talk shows.
So no financial gain at all.
None. And he maintained this persona 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Even when he was totally alone in his hospital room, he wrote in his journal in this archaic Swedish.
Wow.
Even when he was under duress, confused, or being poked with needles, he never once slipped into English. Stating a lie like that in a language you shouldn't know, the cognitive load would be crushing. It's practically impossible.
Okay, what about the genetic memory theory? The sort of Assassin's Creed idea that memories are stored in our DNA and he just unlocked an ancestor.
That was a popular theory online. But they did a DNA test.
And?
English, Irish, German. 0 Scandinavian markers. So biologically, he had no link whatsoever to this Johan Ek. He wasn't remembering a great-grandfather's life.
Which leaves us with the theory that the scientists, they don't want to touch it, but it's the one that, frankly, fits the data the best.
The dimensional shift, or consciousness transfer. The theory is that the consciousness of Johan Ek from 1887 somehow swapped places with the consciousness of Michael Boatwright in 2019.
It sounds absolutely crazy. We're talking science fiction.
It does, and as a man of science, I struggle with it. But if you look at it purely as a data problem, we have a personality, a memory set, and a language capability that corresponds to 1887 inhabiting a body from 2019.
And the other theories just don't work.
The medical theories, stroke, fugue, psychosis, they all fail to explain the language acquisition. The wild theory is, strangely, the only one that actually covers all the bases.
So what happened to him? The system can't just keep a guy in a hospital forever if he's physically healthy.
No, and this is where the story turns from a fascinating mystery into a real tragedy. After 5 months, his insurance ran out. He still couldn't speak English. He still didn't know who Michael was.
He was a man stranded in a foreign country, even though it was his own country.
Exactly. A charity eventually stepped in and helped move him to Sweden, to Karlstad.
They sent him home. I just want to pause on that moment. Imagine getting on that plane. You think you're returning to 1887, and you land in 2019 Sweden.
The culture shock. The reports from his arrival are heartbreaking. When he got to Karlstad, he just wept. He was navigating the streets by memory, but the map in his head didn't match the territory on the ground.
What do you mean?
He'd point to a 7-Eleven and say, "That was the smithy." He'd look for a park and find a parking lot. He was a ghost haunting a future he didn't understand.
Did he ever regain his memory? Did Michael ever come back?
No. He lived in Sweden for 3 years. He actually worked as a carpenter, Johan's trade. He built furniture. He made a life for himself. But he was always waiting.
Waiting for what?
For the ride to end, I guess. And the date of his death. This is the final, perfect puzzle piece that just makes you question reality itself. Michael Boatwright died on March 15, 2022.
Wait, March 15th, that's the exact date he was found in the motel.
Exactly 3 years to the day. He died of natural causes, heart failure. But investigators found his journals. They were written in that impossible dialect. And the final entry, written on March 14th, 2022, the day before he died, it's haunting.
I have the translation right here. Let me read this. He wrote, "Tomorrow I will go home, back to the time where I belong. I am not afraid. I am ready."
It implies he knew. He felt the window closing, or opening, depending on how you look at it.
He predicted his own exit. That gives me goosebumps. He was buried in Florida, right?
Yes. And the family, to their credit, they honored the complexity of his life. The tombstone lists both names. Michael Thomas Boatwright, Johan Ek.
And the epitaph.
The epitaph reads, "A man lost between worlds."
So what does this all mean? We have a man who lost his language, his identity, gained a history that wasn't his, and then seemed to predict his own departure.
It forces us to confront how little we actually understand about consciousness. We like to think of identity as this solid thing. I am me, my memories are mine, they are stored in my neurons. But if a switch can be flipped and suddenly you are someone else, with a different language and different memories, where does you actually reside? Is it in the brain, or is it something else entirely?
That's the terrifying part. We rely on our memories to tell us who we are. If I woke up tomorrow and my entire internal life was that of someone from 19th century Sweden, that would be my reality. No amount of you showing me my driver's license would change that internal truth for me.
Precisely. To Michael, or to Johan, his life as an American sales consultant was the fiction. His life as a carpenter in 1887 was the truth. And science, for all its advancements, it couldn't bridge that gap. We had the scans, we had the tests, but we couldn't bring Michael back.
It really makes you think about the fragility of your own identity. If you woke up tomorrow in a motel room, speaking a language you don't know, with memories of a life you never lived, how would you prove to anyone, or even to yourself, that you are still you?
You couldn't. And that is the terrifying beauty of this mystery.
We're going to leave you with that uncomfortable thought today. The human mind is a deep ocean, and we've barely even mapped the shoreline. Thanks for diving in with us.
Always a pleasure. Keep questioning.